My son replaced me with his mother-in-law, but I discovered an amazing transformative secret. Jessica's heart sank as the words spilled from Mark's lips. His decision felt like a dagger piercing through the fabric of their bond. The small kitchen in their modest home, once a cocoon of laughter and shared moments, echoed with the heaviness of abandonment. Mark was moving in with Elaine, his ambitious mother-in-law, chasing opportunities that Jessica struggled to provide. The very thought felt like an eraser smudging away all she had invested in him, countless sleepless nights, sacrifices that had become her everyday norm. Doubt crept in like a shadow. Was her love not enough? Did Mark see her sacrifices as inadequate in the face of Elaine's wealth and ambition? Jessica fought back rising tears, desperately searching for the right words amidst the swirling storm of her emotions. Meanwhile, the sterile hospital floor beckoned, her gurney-laden escape from the reality of her crumbling family. Within the hospital walls, Jessica's day blurred into a relentless barrage of patients and responsibilities. Every shift, she encountered stories that reflected the harshness of life, yet she was reminded of her place in the cycle, a dedicated nurse who understood the fragility of human existence. But with each patient interaction, the ache of her own grief manifested as a paramedic's urgency, a desperate need to save others while her own soul felt neglected. It was a powerful juxtaposition that gnawed at her very core. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Under the mentorship of a seasoned nurse, Jessica's yearning to advocate for patients began to sparkle amid the shadows of despair. The initiative she started to improve patient care ignited a flicker of hope both in her community and in her own heart. Yet every victory felt like a hollow achievement. Thoughts of Mark's absence lurked in the back of her mind. Could she really find fulfillment while her family fractured around her? The evolving tensions with Elaine hovered over Jessica like impending thunderclouds, a fierce clash of wills laced with jealousy and the need for validation. Just when she started to embrace the power of advocacy and to step into her true identity, the foundation began to crack. Then came the shocker. Elaine, with her polished exterior, wasn't just a mother-in-law. The revelations of their intertwined history rattled Jessica to her core, fabricating fears that threatened to undo the very woman she had become through the trials of motherhood and profession. Torn between loyalty to her son and confused resentment towards Elaine, Jessica felt the walls closing in. Everything she thought she knew was now shrouded in uncertainty, her identity blurred by familial twists she hadn't anticipated. At the edge of her resolve, she faced a decision that could alter the destinies of them all, a culmination of loss, ambition, and rivalry that left her reeling. As the night draped over her while she prepped for the imminent community meeting, a message from Mark buzzed on her phone, summoning deep anxiety and racing thoughts. Its implications promised to challenge everything and might tear apart the remnants of their bond forever. Would it serve as a bridge to their reconciliation, or a chasm that swallowed their collective dreams whole? Jessica's breath hitched as her pulse quickened, tormented by anticipation and dread. Her heart quaked with uncertainty, teetering between hope and despair. In the hushed chaos of the hospital corridors, Jessica's fingers trembled as she scrolled through the message on her phone. Mark's text was clear, revealing a vulnerability she hadn't seen in weeks. "I want to talk. Can we meet at the diner tomorrow?" The straightforwardness of his request slapped her with a combination of dread and yearning. Could this be the opportunity for clarity, or merely another step towards the abyss? The night dragged, every tick of the clock amplifying the stakes of their impending conversation. The thoughts of Elaine loomed large in her mind, transforming the simple diner into a battlefield. What would she even say? Did Mark understand the emotional complexity behind wanting both a mother and a mentor in his life? As she mentally rehearsed her responses, the naive part of her hoped for reconciliation, while the pragmatic side braced for confrontation. Morning dawned over the diner, and as she slid into a booth, Jessica felt the weight of her commitments re-emerging, the blaring monitors, the smiling faces of patients relying on her strengths, and the gnawing sense of familial betrayal. She wondered if this meeting would bolster her resolve or crumble her fragile spirit further. Mark arrived, looking hesitant, even vulnerable. His shoulders slumped slightly, as if he carried the burden of their estrangement. Each step he took towards her felt like an emotional tug-of-war, pulling at her heartstrings even as anger simmered on the surface. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, avoiding her gaze. The sincerity of his voice ignited a flicker of hope in her. "You said you wanted to talk," Jessica replied coolly, her defenses still tightly wound. He fidgeted, now focused on the tabletop, his fingers tracing invisible patterns. "I've been thinking about everything. About you, about me, about Elaine. I know it's been hard."
Jessica met his gaze, her heart racing. The struggle within her was palpable. Was it anger, disappointment, or the longing for the son who had drifted away? "You've made your choice, Mark. I just don't understand why you felt you had to go that route," she stated, her voice trembling slightly. "I needed direction," he confessed, breaking eye contact. "Elaine offered me that. I thought you didn't want the same things anymore." The words hit her like an icy plank. Did her sense of purpose conflict with motherhood? "But I do want the same things. I just want them differently," she countered, attempting to hold back the wave of emotions threatening to drown her composure. "Being a nurse is who I am. You have to know that my sacrifices were not for nothing." Mark sighed, visibly shaken, his expression one of regret. "I didn't see it that way. I thought it was just normal." "Normal?" Jessica interrupted. "Just because your life has layers doesn't mean mine should fade into the background. You're my son. My love should count for something." As silence blanketed the diner, Jessica felt an unfamiliar resolve coursing through her veins. There was something significant at play here, a chance to not only reclaim her relationship with Mark, but to reclaim her own self-worth, which had unknowingly slipped into the shadows since Elaine entered their lives. She didn't just want to be the background support. She wanted to be recognized and valued for her identity, both as a mother and a professional. Mark finally met her gaze, a glimmer of understanding breaking through the clouds of discomfort. "You're right. I haven't appreciated you like I should. Can we start over?" His words flooded Jessica with hope, yet demanded a decision. Could she truly trust him again? Could she carve a place in his life without feeling eclipsed by Elaine? As she absorbed the weight of Mark's admission, a sudden realization occurred to her. It was time for action. Jessica understood now that she could be both nurturing and assertive, demanding respect while offering love. "Before we can start over," she proposed, "there are things I need to establish, boundaries, expectations, about your life and mine." Mark's expression shifted to one of determination. "I'll do whatever it takes." As they finalized their conversation, hope mingled with the tension of potential freedom. Once the diner faded from view, however, Jessica felt the lingering shadow of Elaine's influence, how deeply intertwined their lives were. The fight for her identity had only begun, and the next confrontation with Elaine lurked ominously in the corners of her mind. As Jessica left the diner, the pulse of determination surged within her, setting the stage for a powerful encounter with Elaine. Would she finally begin to reclaim her narrative, or would her fight against the woman who had supplanted her edge her into deeper despair?
The battle for her identity was just beginning, and the stakes had never felt higher. The sun hung high and unforgiving as Jessica approached Elaine's house, a sense of urgency pushing her forward. Today was not just another day, it was a looming confrontation she had been preparing for mentally, her heart caught in a whirlwind of anticipation and dread. The stakes had escalated since her meeting with Mark. She could no longer see herself as merely his mother, overshadowed by Elaine's presence. As she stepped onto the porch, the chirping of birds morphed into a cacophony, drowning out the thoughts clamoring in her mind. She was acutely aware of how things had shifted. She needed to redefine not only her relationship with Mark, but also the one with Elaine. This was about establishing boundaries built on respect and understanding, a delicate negotiation where both parties needed to emerge as more than mere roles within an unwieldy family tree. With a deep breath, she knocked on the door. Moments later, Elaine appeared, her face betraying surprise. "Jessica, what brings you here?" Jessica felt the chill of old grudges tighten around her. "We need to talk," she declared, her tone firm yet measured. She stepped past Elaine into the house, noting the familiar scent that had once brought comfort now felt suffocating instead. "About what exactly?" Elaine asked, her casual demeanor masking an underlying tension.
About Mark, about us. Jessica felt the words simmer in her throat. She had come to disrupt the status quo, but the hesitation loomed like a ghost in the corner, whispering doubts. Elaine raised an eyebrow, curiosity tinged with defensiveness. I thought things were settling down. He seems happy. That's what concerns me, Jessica shot back, her urgency giving way to passion. I'm not here to undermine your role. I want to understand how we can coexist without stepping on each other's toes. Elaine's features shifted, contemplating the unexpected request. You think I'm trying to take over? It feels that way, Jessica stated bluntly, allowing the tension to bubble to the surface. Mark is also my son, and I fear losing a bond that means everything to me. I need you to know I'm not a threat, but the truth is I am reclaiming my position in his life. He is not just your son-in-law, he's my son too. The room seemed to tighten around them, an invisible barrier slipping into place. Elaine's eyes narrowed as she processed Jessica's words. And how do you propose to do that? By setting rules? By having an honest discussion about expectations. I understand that he looks to you for guidance, but I've been there every step of the way. I won't let that go unnoticed anymore. As she spoke, Jessica began to feel the contours of her emotions solidify into something more substantial. This was not just about reclaiming Mark's attention. It was about affirming her own identity, not just as a mother, but as a woman who had sacrificed for her family and career. The disappointment lingered, but she decided it wouldn't define her today. Elaine crossed her arms, her expression a mixture of surprise and contemplative reflection. I never meant for you to feel replaced. I thought we were working together. Together, yes, but I need to know my input holds value too, Jessica clarified. It's not about diminishing your role, but allowing space for mine. We can both be important in Mark's life without sacrificing who we are. The silence that fell between them swelled with possibility, the air thick yet electric. Jessica could sense the shift, a crack in Elaine's defenses that might just reveal room for negotiation. Elaine sighed, unraveling her posture slightly. Maybe I misunderstood how significant your role is in his life. I just wanted what was best for him, and maybe I forgot about you in the process. Jessica's heart raced as she took a step closer to achieving a breakthrough. We both care for him deeply, and it's time we acknowledge that. I'm willing to work with you, but you need to hear me. The confrontation was raw yet empowering, an opening that Jessica had long sought. Would this mark a pivotal moment in their relationship? Yet, as she prepared to face her newfound resolve and potential alliance, she felt the nagging realization that this was merely the beginning. The fight for her identity and her bond with Mark could simmer just beneath the surface of their unfolding dialogue. In their shared silence, the next challenge loomed larger than either was prepared to address, the unraveling of connections long overdue. Jessica's heart raced with anticipation. Would embracing this challenging partnership lead to greater understanding or unleash a storm of chaos that neither could control? The air remained thick with tension as Jessica and Elaine stood facing each other, the weight of their unspoken fears echoing in the stillness. Jessica took a half step, instinctively closing the distance. There was a tentative hope that had started to bloom. They were no longer adversaries. This was a partnership only if both of them agreed to nurture it. I want to find a way to participate more in Mark's life, Jessica urged, searching Elaine's expression for signs of mutual interest. I've spent so many years feeling sidelined, a mere spectator. That has to change if we're going to find a balance. Elaine's disposition seemed to soften, her defenses lowering. It's hard for someone in my position not to feel protective, she admitted, her candor surprising Jessica. Mark is my kid too in so many ways. Seeing another woman potentially threaten that bond, it's unsettling. Forcing herself to remain grounded, Jessica chose her words carefully.
I understand that, but it's essential for both of us to realize the value we each bring to his life. We both love him, and together we could create a more stable environment. Jessica's heart pounded with each revelation, not the anxiety-laden rhythm that had accompanied her before, but a steady beat of growing confidence. She had embarked on this journey seeking to reclaim her identity, yet right here, in this very moment, she began to understand how collaboration could also offer fulfillment. What if we made an effort to stay in touch more directly? Elaine suggested, trepidation still evident. Set up regular times where we discuss Mark's needs, his activities. That way we can both feel included. The invitation sparked a glimmer of triumph in Jessica's chest, yet she hesitated before responding. It wasn't going to be easy to dismantle years of competition and resentment. I like that idea, but I also want to make sure we both have space to voice our concerns without fear of judgment. If I express something, it's from a place of love for Mark, not to undermine you. The light in Elaine's eyes resonated with acknowledgement. I've seen how much he's thrived with both of us, and perhaps it took me too long to recognize that it could be beneficial rather than threatening. A newfound rhythm began to emerge, a way forward that felt invigorating rather than intimidating. As they discussed details, subtle shifts in their conversation hinted at fireworks sparking beneath the surface. Jessica felt layers of doubt peel away. Purpose and belonging were intertwined in a complex dance she could finally begin to engage with. Yet, just as optimism seeped into the atmosphere around them, Jessica's mind flared with concern. Though the air had relaxed between them, she sensed implications beneath the surface. Would these positive intentions stand the test of time, or was this nothing more than a temporary truce? And what about her own relationship with Mark? Would he embrace this new collaborative approach, or would he struggle between loyalties? As Elaine spoke, an inexplicable unease settled into Jessica's gut. She needed to address those undercurrents. I think we can both benefit from this arrangement, she began slowly, testing her words. But if we present a united front to Mark, we must also deal with potential backlash from our families. Elaine stiffened at the mention of family dynamics. I hadn't thought of that. Are we prepared to confront anyone who questions our new approach? Jessica's heartbeat quickened, the stakes climbing higher. This partnership might not just be about Mark. It could unravel family loyalties and reveal cracks in the very foundations of their lives. They were at the precipice of a new venture, their bond teetering on the edge of confrontation. Would they emerge unscathed, or would the decision to collaborate unleash conflicts they had yet to confront?
As they prepared to leave the conversation, one thought haunted Jessica. Could rewriting her role in Mark's life also lead to the unearthing of long-buried family secrets? The moment to face whatever lay ahead was rapidly approaching. With each step Jessica took away from the conversation with Elaine, her mind buzzed with an overwhelming mix of hope and fear. The glimmering prospect of a united front in Mark's life felt tantalizingly within reach, yet trepidation gnawed at her insides. As they approached the car, she hesitated, considering the events that could reshape their lives. The lingering uncertainty about how Mark might react to their collaboration weighed heavily on her. His smile could mask a world of confusion, and Jessica considered how best to prepare for that confrontation. What if he felt torn? In the last few weeks, she had observed his hesitance when she brought up discussing Elaine, an uncomfortable yet necessary subject they both needed to tackle. Driving home, Jessica replayed the day's discussions in her mind, exposing the fissures of her self-doubt. Was she ready to be vulnerable? Could she articulate this new dynamic in a way that Mark would understand, that he wouldn't view it as a betrayal? Stopping at a red light, she forced herself to breathe. Her only way out of this torment was to embrace open communication, not just with Elaine, but with Mark. When she finally arrived home, a sense of urgency flooded her. She needed to prepare before approaching Mark. She switched on the kettle and began pacing the familiar confines of her living room, her mind racing. Mark had his own struggles in juggling his relationships, and Jessica realized they had to lay a foundation for a new kind of dialogue. What words would resonate with him? It was essential to share their intentions, to highlight how this cooperation could only fortify the bonds between all of them. With every moment that passed, the potential consequences of keeping Elaine at arm's length accumulated in her mind. They had previously been outsiders in each other's lives, but Mark deserved more stability. She reached for her notebook, the one where she had previously penned dreams and aspirations, and began to outline her thoughts. It morphed into a mind map of sorts, charting the new, interconnected roles she desired to create: mom, partner, friend. Midway through her musings, she realized this wasn't merely about reinstating herself in Mark's world. It was about obliterating the damaging isolation that had come with feeling disconnected from key relationships. The air grew heavy with the potential of her realizations. There was strength in vulnerability, and these connections added depth to her identity. She could be more than a spectator. As her pen scratched against the paper, her thoughts crystallized into concrete action. Meetings with Elaine about Mark's life were essential, but additionally, she would incorporate time with Mark that strictly focused on their bond. They could have moments dedicated to their shared experiences that would reinforce the love they had nurtured. Dialing down her anxiety, she imagined the three of them together. What a beautiful harmony that could be. But would it last? The haunting question wrapped itself around her thoughts with unyielding tenacity. As she prepared herself mentally for that first conversation with Mark, she paused, realizing the electric pulse of doubt still coursed through her. Could she stand firm amidst possible pushback? Her motivations were sincere, yet people's perceptions, especially those of family, could easily cloud her intentions. Finally, the kettle whistled, breaking her thoughts. As she poured herself a cup, Jessica knew she was standing on the cusp of something significant. Change was never easy, and the relationships in her life demanded courage. How would she navigate the reactions that came her way? Would they move towards a healthier family dynamic, or would the storm of backlash drown out their newly forged alliance? With nerves and excitement swirling within her, she took that deep breath and prepared to commit to the course she had chosen, knowing that the stakes had never been higher. In that moment of resolve, an unsettling notion struck her. Just how deeply had their family secrets been buried, and did they hold the potential to derail her plans? The shadows of the past loomed, waiting. The evening trembled with tension as Jessica held her cup, feeling the warmth seep into her hands, grounding her in a moment that could alter everything. The delicate balance of hope and fear danced in her gut like a wild flame. She set the cup down, letting the brief moment of calm slip away, replaced by a torrent of thoughts about her upcoming conversation with Mark. She envisioned his face, the easy smile that could easily falter into confusion or hurt. What if he took her proposal for collaboration as a sign of weakness rather than an opportunity for strength? She needed to be firm, yet sensitive. These dual objectives paled against each other and sparked an inner conflict. The woman she'd been crafted from the remnants of past disappointments was being stretched against the fabric of who she aspired to be. Jessica closed her eyes, inhaling deeply as she envisioned the way forward. In her mind, she drafted a blueprint for interaction, each point delicately threaded with care and clarity. After all, transparency formed the crux of every relationship. She could no longer afford to shy away from difficult conversations. In her pursuit of restructuring their family's dynamics, she obsessed over the fundamental question that haunted her most: how to ensure Mark felt secure through this monumental shift.
She needed to provide assurance that Elaine's presence wouldn't threaten their bond, but rather embrace it, deepening their familial ties. Yet, the more Jessica contemplated, the more she slipped into the realm of self-doubt. Was it truly possible to change the foundation of their dynamic so late in the game? A soft sound pulled her from the dizzying spiral of speculation. The door creaked open, and Mark entered, his expression indicating another day of emotional wear. He dropped his bag and made a beeline for the couch, the weight of his frustrations palpable. This was the moment, the point of potential vulnerability where they could breach the abyss between them. "Hey," he said, barely lifting his gaze as he sank into the couch's embrace. "Hey," Jessica responded, her voice steady despite the heart racing beneath her ribcage. She had to break the silence, propel them into discussion. But as the words formed in her mind, they remained uncoupled, slipping away as doubt surged through her. She settled beside him, their shoulders brushing. "Can we talk about Elaine?" The words escaped, succinct and unadorned. Each syllable felt like a small but necessary push into open waters, one that required her to relinquish control to the tides of their emotions. Mark's head snapped up and he studied her face. His expression was a complicated mix of confusion and wariness. What about her? Jessica could sense the tension brewing just beneath the surface, a storm of reactions waiting to spiral out of control. Fighting the instinct to backtrack, she pressed on. "I had a conversation with her today. I think we need to talk about how we can all support each other better, especially with the way things have been lately." She braced herself as silence enveloped them. The seconds stretched unbearably, causing her heart to pound heavily against her chest. "You want us to work together?" Mark finally asked, uncertainty lacing his tone. "Yes," she replied, her resolve sharpening. "But more than that, I want us to be stronger together, as a family." Mark's expression faltered, and she could see him grappling with something profound in that moment. This was the crux of their dynamic. The hidden fractures that had formed over time now urged him to confront his feelings. Jessica's heart raced, tethered to a frantic hope that he would grasp this bridge she attempted to construct. "What does that even mean?" he queried, the wariness in his voice replaced by a flash of curiosity. For a fleeting moment, Jessica felt the flutter of lightness amidst the heaviness they both carried. This was the opportunity to reveal her intentions and reassess their family's compass. But before she could articulate her vision, an unsettling thought pierced her mind. Would he see this as an encroachment rather than an invitation? Mark's brow crinkled with skepticism, the storm brewing once more.
As uncertainty hung thick in the air, Jessica understood an undeniable truth. This was only the beginning of a critical clash that could redefine everything, revealing deep-seated emotions they had long concealed. As the evening dragged deeper into uncertainty, Jessica realized that the shadows of their family history, however deeply buried, would no longer remain silent. The time had come to address the secrets that loomed close, stirring a sense of dread within her. How would she confront them, and how would they shape their narrative moving forward? In that suspended moment, the tension between them reached a tipping point. She was ready to confront the past, eyes wide open to whatever truths awaited her. But would Mark join her on this treacherous journey? As the conversation hung in the air, she knew the real struggle was just beginning. The silence wrapped around them like a thick fog, pressing heavily against Jessica's chest. She could feel her thoughts swirling, battling against the mounting anxiety that threatened to spill over. Breaking through the disquieting tension felt imperative, yet each breath seemed to evoke new fears. What if this moment tore them apart instead of stitching them closer together? Mark, I understand that changes are hard, especially when they involve people we care about, but I need you to trust that this conversation is coming from a place of love, she urged, her tone melding vulnerability with determination. It was critical she communicate conviction, even when uncertainty loomed like a shadow within her. Mark's brow furrowed deeper as he absorbed her words. His response was maddeningly slow, as if he were rehearsing the lines of a complex script before speaking. Love, he echoed, skepticism dripping from the single word. But you're asking me to accept someone who's been a stranger, my mother's best friend, no less. What if this complicates everything we have? This assertion struck a chord within her. It wasn't merely about Elaine. It was about their family identity, their emotional landscape. Jessica wouldn't allow herself to shrink from this discovery. I realize how all this may seem, she replied, leaning in slightly, her focus unwavering. Elaine is not a threat to what we have. I believe she can be a guiding force in our lives. With her support, we could strengthen our bond in ways we haven't even considered yet. In Mark's eyes, she observed the storm recalibrating. Wariness was shifting into consideration, but shadows of doubt still twinkled in the corners. Here was her chance to confront the misconceptions driving his reluctance. We've endured shadows of disappointment for too long. You've always felt the strain of balancing my previous decisions, and I can see that you're fearful of repeating mistakes. His eyes flickered with a hint of resentment. You know what I fear, Jessica. It's the unpredictability of change.
Every time we adjust, something breaks. But isn't it time we adjust to something positive? She interjected, her heart racing. Each phrase felt like a revelation, revealing a hidden strength she was rediscovering. Despite trembling, her voice remained firm. If we stick to what we've always done, we'll never grow. We cannot let this fear dictate our path. It's time to build something new, and I'm asking you to join me on that journey. Jessica recognized the weight of her words. They carried an essence she hadn't fully realized existed within her. It wasn't merely a call to action for Mark, but a rallying cry for herself as well, a declaration of her intention to forge ahead, confident and unafraid. Mark looked at her, an intricate blend of emotion flickering through his gaze. Whether it was confusion, fear, or even a sliver of hope, she could not tell. Yet she knew that reaching this juncture mattered profoundly, both for their future and her own development. Let's discuss boundaries, expectations, and how we can align our desires with this change, Jessica suggested, her determination spilling into practical action. This was humanitarian work at its core, understanding, negotiating, collaborating. She felt empowered as she mapped out her aspirations, translating invisible dreams into tangible actions. Each word retraced the steps of personal growth, reinforcing her agency in both family dynamics and her self-worth. Conversations had once paralyzed her, associated with her fear of rejection or failure, but this time she was embracing an evolving narrative, breaking free from the cyclical constraints that had long defined her relationships. Mark's face softened slightly, and she sensed a precipice forming beneath them. They stood at a brink, ready to step into an uncharted future together. Just as she believed they had begun to piece together a new language of understanding,
a deep-seated question surfaced, one that lingered with a new cascading fear. "Will we still be ourselves in this new setup?" he ventured quietly. The weight of his words settled heavily, resonating with a complexity she hadn't fully unraveled herself. Would building a new family dynamic redefine them entirely? The potential for transformation was palpable, but uncertainty thrummed in the air, a body of tension waiting to explode. As her mind raced with possible outcomes and consequences, Jessica realized this was far from over. They had merely scratched the surface of a deeper journey, one filled with new fears, revelations, and questions underlying their identities. The pivotal moment had merely set the stage for an unfolding drama, revealing that true transformation requires more than just dialogue. It demands an entirely new grounding in reality. And with that understanding, she returned her gaze to Mark, steeling herself for what revelations awaited them beyond the threshold of this delicate conversation. What truths would they discover about themselves, and could they withstand the pressures that such revelations might bring? The air around Jessica hummed with uncertainty, the silence stretching between her and Mark, taut like a frayed wire threatening to snap. As they stood on the precarious brink of change, she felt a surge of anxiety clashing against her newly discovered resolve. Navigating the delicate territory of emotional transformation required more than just dialogue. It demanded that she embrace the turbulence head-on and rely on the strength she had subtly unearthed. "Mark," she began, needing to pierce the thick fog of doubt encircling them, "what do you envision for us, for our family?" Her voice steadied, intent on drawing out his vision and, in the process, nurturing her own. He shifted slightly, an unconscious gesture of discomfort, his eyes searching for a focal point in the room rather than resting on her. I want to keep things stable," he finally confessed, each word laced with a whisper of longing. But what does stable mean when everything around us is changing? Stability, once a given in their life, now felt elusive. Jessica recognized his struggle, a mirror reflecting her own internal chaos. Yet in his vulnerability lay an opportunity for growth, not just for Mark, but for both of them. It means maintaining our values while allowing space for evolution. It's not about resisting change, it's about adapting to it. Can we explore that together? As the gravity of her questions sank in, she noticed a flicker of realization in his gaze. This wasn't just about Elaine or the potential family dynamics forming around their relationship. It was a pivotal moment for them both, an invitation to expand their understanding of family. "Elaine could help us reframe our relationship," Jessica continued, emboldened, fueled by a desire to weave their disparate threads into a cohesive tapestry. "She can be a new resource, a partner enriching our lives. What if we reassess our family identity?" The notion led to scattered thoughts swirling in his mind. She could see it, the budding curiosity mingled with lingering resistance. "You really think she can make a difference?" His skepticism was fading, replaced by a cautious optimism that made her heart soar. "It's not just about her," she replied, her voice gentle yet firm. "It's about us. We are at a crossroads where we can either cling to the familiar or let go and grow into something better." Mark paused, grappling with the emotional weight of her words. Jessica could sense that beneath his practical exterior lay a deep yearning for connection, both to her and to the future they could build together. "You've always wanted that," he said thoughtfully. "A bigger family, to really feel connected." "Yes," she breathed out, a mix of relief and hope coursing through her. It was as if their conversation had dug up shared dreams that had long been buried under fear.
Imagine creating a network of support instead of isolation. Let's not limit ourselves to conventional structures when we can cultivate something richer. However, as exhilaration flooded her spirit, a droplet of dread surfaced. What if Elaine didn't resonate with Mark? What if this endeavor to reshape their family only unearthed more fractures? Fear fluttered at the edges of her consciousness, insistently reminding her of the risks involved in confronting the unknown. "Okay," Mark finally said, his voice equally tentative yet decisive. "I'm willing to try, but we have to communicate openly." The caveat was clear, and she nodded vigorously, hearts pounding in sync with the gravity of their decision. As they traversed this newfound commitment, the air around them lightened, yet beneath the surface lay undertones of anxiety intermingled with anticipation. Would they indeed forge a new family narrative,
Or would the shadows of their past resurface, dragging them into the depths of their fears once more? The questions hung heavy between them, their future still cloaked in uncertainty. And just as they began to sketch the outlines of a shared vision, an unexpected knock reverberated through the silence, a sound that sliced through the fragile atmosphere they had begun to create. Jessica's heartbeat quickened in response. What could it signify? Who was interrupting their deeply personal moment? The room shifted, the tension reassembling, as if reorganizing itself for yet another wave of transformation. Jessica's breath caught for a moment, her heart racing not just from surprise, but from a lingering sense of vulnerability. She didn't register the second knock, nor did she remember her intention to embrace change. Instead, she was swallowed by the gravity of their exchange, the lightness that had wrapped around them moments ago, now displaced by uncertainty. "It's probably just a delivery," Mark suggested, brushing off the moment with a casualness that felt alarmingly forced. But Jessica's instinct screamed otherwise. It felt more like the universe had routed an unexpected intrusion into their fragile pact. "Maybe we shouldn't answer," she murmured, her thoughts swirling around the implications of both opening the door and what it might mean for them. Mark's uncertainty hung in the air, his gaze shifting to the door, as if it held the answers to questions neither had yet formulated. "We can't keep avoiding the outside world," he replied, his voice steadying. "Let's see." Gathering her composure, she nodded and walked toward the door, each step a careful traverse through the chaos in her mind. She opened it slowly, the hinges creaking like her unease. Standing there was a young woman, bright-eyed and holding an oversized envelope. "Hi, are you Jessica?" She radiated energy, an aura of sunshine that seemed to seep into the dim corners of the room. "I'm Elaine. I hope it's okay that I dropped by." Jessica's heart flipped.
This was Elaine, the person they had both tentatively agreed to include in their lives, yet it felt like a cosmic prank that she would appear so sporadically, almost like fate pushing Jessica closer to the precipice of change. Yes, Jessica managed, forcing a smile as the tension coiled tighter in her chest. Was this the moment where everything would unravel or come together? "It's so great to finally meet you in person," Elaine exclaimed, her enthusiasm palpable. "I brought some resources and ideas for how we can work together. I thought we could brainstorm some family activities that fit everyone's schedules." Jessica felt an internal conflict surge. Here was the embodiment of their aspirations, standing within their threshold. But what was this coming in the form of? Jessica couldn't completely shake the dread that wrapped around her thoughts, whispering all the what-ifs and sowing seeds of doubt. Come in," Mark interjected, breaking the tension. He stepped further into the hall, inviting Elaine inside as he offered her a warm smile. Jessica watched, tension vibrating through her, as Elaine stepped over the threshold and enveloped them both in confidence and potential. She had been expecting a turning point, and here it was, trotting into her life with pedestrian cheerfulness, yet it felt like she was standing on the edge of an abyss. Once Elaine settled in, she began chattering about her thoughts on expanding their definition of family while unfurling papers filled with ideas. Jessica kept nodding, her exterior composed, while internally questioning whether this was the key to the unity they desired or a new source of discord. Mark seemed engrossed, his enthusiasm evident as he engaged with Elaine's ideas, his potential light shining brightly. But Jessica's heart felt heavy. It was a familiar sensation, one she had felt when navigating the fragility of their past. "Is this what I wanted?" she silently questioned, wrestling with emotions that surged like tides within her. It seemed the fabric of their relationship was about to be rewoven, but would the new threads hold or fray when tugged? As Elaine began to outline her vision for Family Day, Jessica couldn't help but notice the sense of camaraderie building between them. Perhaps this was what they needed, a fresh perspective. Yet a flicker of dread emerged within her core. How much of herself was she willing to compromise to welcome this change? The moment stretched, filled with glimmering possibilities that twinkled like stars against the backdrop of her worries. She realized suddenly that this was not just a test of their familial bonds. It was a process of self-discovery, an opportunity for Jessica to wholly explore who she was. "Before we can move forward," she interjected, surprising herself, "I need to know what boundaries we are setting. I want to work with you both, but I need to express my fears and hopes first." Surprised, Mark and Elaine exchanged looks, leaving a stillness in the air that felt like picking up a weighty, unaddressed topic.
The questions inside Jessica solidified, each poised for confrontation. This was her moment, a plunge into the depths of change, where she would either find strength or be submerged. It was time to redefine her narrative, yet the spectrum of uncertainty loomed ahead. Would embracing this collaboration and revealing her needs be her liberation, or would it open barriers she wasn't ready to confront? And as the conversation took root, soaking up the life force of possibilities, a new kind of tension began its slow burn, a fierce battle between fear and resolve, leaving Jessica bracing for the realization that the real challenge lay ahead rather than behind her. With each passing second, Jessica felt the emotional stakes rise like the tumultuous tide against a weathered shore. Every word Elaine spoke sent ripples through her resolve, the woman's enthusiasm a stark juxtaposition to the simmering doubts that clawed at Jessica's mind. As the initial excitement settled momentarily, a deeper understanding blossomed within her. This wasn't simply about accommodating two pivotal figures in her life. It was about reclaiming her own narrative amid their tangled roles. Listening intently, Jessica began to see potential instead of threat. Here was Elaine, full of ideas, yet what did Jessica truly want to contribute to this new dynamic? Suddenly, she understood the significance of her voice within this evolving narrative. Her heart quickened, not with fear, but with the invigorating recognition of her agency. "Elaine," she interjected, determination lining her spine. "I appreciate your ideas, but I have some thoughts on how we can work together effectively. It's essential that we lay out our expectations clearly. I want to engage, but on terms that ensure I remain a vital part of Mark's life." The air thickened as Elaine paused, the fire in her eyes momentarily flickering. Jessica sensed a shift, a crack in the carefully constructed facade that had surrounded them since they began this tenuous journey. Mark's brows furrowed at Jessica's forthrightness, surprise mingling with admiration, as he realized that she was stepping into her power. "And I want to hear those thoughts," Elaine responded, the warmth of her demeanor softening under the weight of Jessica's request. Jessica felt a surge of pride, springing from the knowledge that she had stood her ground, suggesting room for dialogue where once silence reigned. "I want to be involved in family activities, but I also need to prioritize time with Mark just for us. I need assurance that my position is respected, not just as an afterthought. We all want what's best for him. It's vital we don't overshadow each other." Spurred by newfound clarity, Jessica began to sketch boundaries that aligned with her values.
Ideas flowed, not just for family days, but for deeper conversations, times to reflect on decisions where all three could connect positively. This wasn't merely about restructuring a family. It was about affirming her identity, committing to action that resonated with who she was becoming. Elaine nodded, a hint of understanding coloring her features. "That makes sense. I think what Jessica's saying is important," Mark added, his voice solid as he continued to watch his mother. "We need to be mindful of everyone's feelings as we navigate this. It can't just be one-sided." Jessica's heart raced, fueled by the revelation. Mark was learning. He was grasping the importance of their collaboration and the foundational shifts necessary to support all parties involved. Perhaps this was the moment where healing took root, where they could all forge a deeper connection by acknowledging past grievances while stepping toward a collective future. What had once felt like loss transformed into a tapestry of empowerment. Challenges turned into opportunities for growth. The bonding moment was no longer about division, but about dynamic coexistence, tied together by love, patience, and understanding. "Can we commit," Jessica proposed, "to regular check-ins, not just about Mark, but about how each of us is feeling in this setup? There may be hurdles, but discussing them could solidify our foundation." Elaine's agreement followed suit, as her initial defensiveness melted away, replaced with a rare, open humility. "Absolutely. I think regular communication is paramount if we're going to grow as a family. I want us to be okay," she said earnestly. Jessica realized this wasn't a battle for approval. It was a reclamation of her space, her role. This newfound awareness blossomed into solid confidence, one that reassured her of her worth in their lives. There was pain in the past, but this was paving the way for reconciliation, leading them toward a shared goal. As the trio engaged in rich dialogue, possibilities unfurled like flowers greeting the sun. Each decision rekindled bonds long thought severed.
each shared aspiration strengthening the narrative of their future. The tension that once clawed at their interactions seemingly dissipated, and in its place stood a fragile but sturdy path forward. Jessica's chest swelled with the satisfaction of her progress. She was not just allowing herself to be present, but creating a space that welcomed change without fear. Here was her transformation, moving from a place of despair to one of assertive involvement, not overshadowed, but integral. By the time their discussion reached a natural pause, the heaviness in the room had been replaced by a sense of unity. The future was still uncertain, but Jessica stood tall. Their family dynamic was on the brink of revitalization, crafted from respect, collaboration, and mutual appreciation.
Mark reached across the table, his hand resting gently over his mother's, aware of the pact they'd formed. "Let's make our first family day memorable," he suggested, his enthusiasm palpable. "Something we each value." The laughter that followed was electric, each shared moment solidifying the foundation they'd begun to lay. Jessica felt as though she had finally reclaimed her place, not just as a mother, but as a woman of substance, both in her family and within herself. This was the moment she had sought for so long, a true acknowledgement of her identity and contributions. The journey ahead remained fogged with uncertainties, but she felt a wellspring of hope continue to rise within her. This was just the beginning, and she'd embrace every moment, knowing her voice was heard and valued. Going forward, she was fully aware that real growth required continued conversations, yet she stood ready to confront whatever shadows still lingered, the complexities, the difficulties of unmet expectations, knowing that they could weather any storm together. This was her victory. She had achieved clarity, confidence, and fulfillment. Now it was up to her to build upon this newfound foundation and to ensure that her story, with all its intricacies, continued to unfold beautifully. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial for more content like this. Comment your reactions and theories about this impactful conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering transformation. You need to subscribe now. It's time to rally for stories of perseverance and growth. Don't wait even one more second to share.